right, welcome back, everybody. It's been a while.
It's been a little bit. Took a little break.
We took a week off. I think we can share why. Our co-pilot over here, he got his first dose of the vaccine, which is now publicly available to everybody.
That's true.
And you was hurting.
I must have. I don't know if I'm just fragile. I don't know if my shot was just a little bit more potent.
Yeah.
But I was hurting.
A little extra juice. Okay,
Yeah.
Which is weird because dose 1 people typically don't feel anything.
That's what scares me.
Ray, you didn't feel anything after dose 1? No. I felt nothing.
That's what scares me.
And so dose 2 is either going to be...
my
But
God.
I've heard both. I've heard stories where like people dose 1 is terrible and 2 is even worse. But then the opposite, where 1's bad and 2 they don't feel anything.
Oh, Jesus, please.
Yeah.
I can't handle that again.
That's hilarious. I just shoot here. But so that's why we were gone, guys. We did miss everybody, and just it feels good to be back in the studio, to be honest.
That's good.
But yeah, no, we're back, and today we're actually going to be focusing in on kind of a specific topic, which is shame.
It's a big one.
It's a big one, right?
Yeah.
But before we dive into that, I actually thought it was worth it, based off of just feedback, to clarify just a few things that are obvious to us, but like obviously not to the audience.
Yeah.
And one is our relationship.
Oh boy.
Right? So it's like we've talked like indirectly about it, but just I guess the TLDR version of it is I met Sam in college, right? So I was I was raised in Portland, Oregon, came to school in UW, and when I joined a church ministry, Sam was one of the pastors that was involved. Mm-hmm. And back then there was this weird Game of Thrones type of you need to find a pastor and make him your mentor shit going on. So I still remember like the building and everything where I went up to this man and I asked him to be my mentor, and there was like this whole process, and you said no at first and then you took me in, I think. But point is, from college, so really my transformative years, right, where I kind of figure out what I'm about, what I value, who I want to be. Through that whole period, Sam has been my mentor. We've gone to church together. He's been my pastor before. I used to visit his one of the pastors or one of the churches he used to lead. And so when I say that Sam has been me within the different stages of my life, it's really college and on, because who I was in school, directly out of school, and now are just different people.
Different, yeah.
And so that is a context to Sam and who I am.
Yeah.
So I wanted to provide clarity there. Another thing I wanted to clarify is on your end, actually. Just for the audience, for those that aren't aware, just what are you up to now? Because I mentioned, and you've mentioned, like you've led ministries in churches, you've spoken at retreats and all of that, but like today, what is Sam Townsend up to?
It's a great question. If I'm not golfing or fishing, I think the season that I'm in now, I'm trying to figure out what it looks like to be in ministry. I think I have programmed my mind to how to build church, how to do church. This is what you need. This is the structure. This is the system, and this is how you do it. But I think during this off season per se, it helped me reevaluate, because COVID exposed everything. Of what does it mean not just to go to church, but to be the church? What does it mean to really be the people of God? What does it really mean to do life together? You know what I mean? And really be effective witnesses, effective people in a nation, in a community that's really hurting, you know? And so I'm doing a lot of reevaluation. I'm doing a lot of just turning some stones over. I'm like, what works? What isn't? What's effective? What isn't? What has not worked?
Yes.
And why do we keep doing it? And so I'm just doing a lot of self work. Like my own identity, who I am, what I'm living for.
This is coming from a pastor that's been a pastor for how long?
It's like 10 years. Yeah.
So I think that's going to be a wow, kind of mind-blowing for people, right? Because we think pastors have it all figured out. They don't.
No.
But I also love what I'm hearing from you is, okay, you maybe got too deep into the factory of church, right? And just the operational, executional. And you're just like, listen, like, that's cool, I learned, and I'm grateful, but like, let me see what I'm about and how I can grow and expand based off of those past experiences. Yeah,
I mean, I think if I'm going to be honest, I got so good at being quote unquote Pastor Sam, looking the part, preaching the part. You know, where you preach a message and everyone loves you. You absorb that. You know, and that became my identity. But I realized, man, with everything that I've done, am I really helping anybody? Am I really being faithful to what I believe in, and really caring about the other in a way that's transformative and relational? And so just doing a lot of different just evaluating my life, evaluating where I stand and how I want to move things, and so I'm just I'm trying to figure it out. So until that time,
I love it.
Who knows? I don't know.
Okay, I love it. Self-evaluation, self-discovery. I mean, I think that's kind of what this podcast is all about. And I know for myself, as I'm in the thick of that, one of the things I fucking always run into is shame.
Yeah.
And so let's just start there. Just like, I think the human nature is kind of naturally dispositioned to resort to shame. Yeah. Right? But let's kind of define what it means for us and how does it differ from guilt? So from you, maybe you go and then I'll go, but like how do you, when you think about shame, how do you think about it, and then how does it compare to guilt? For sure. I think particularly because we grew up in a shame-based culture, Asian Americans we're all about that, and it's the backbone of any Asian family and good parenting. It's how they get you. So the difference between shame and guilt is this: guilt is I made a mistake. Okay. Shame is I am a mistake. Shame is based on your identity, who you are, determined by your mistake, your flaw, your weakness. That determines who you are. That is your label. That is your identity. Guilt is what you've done. So a lot of times, instead of holding people accountable to the deed, we make their deed become who they are, which is why we become so ashamed. So for like the Asian American culture, it's you have to be successful, you have to make money, you have to be a doctor, lawyer, The shame is if you are not these things, you are worthless, quote unquote. You are lesser than. You know what I mean? And so that becomes your identity, is because I didn't achieve this. Your shame is I'm not good enough. I am a failure. So let me spit that back to you. So guilt is based upon I made a mistake. It's an action or a thing that happened. Whereas we're saying shame, though, crosses that boundary of not only is this a mistake, but this is defining who I am now. Absolutely. I like that. I like that. I totally agree with you, because shame is it is the bedrock of Asian parenting, right? And you've been through it. I think it's like a cultural just thing, right? Generationally, shame is obviously not a good positive thing, but it works in certain cases, right? It'll change you. It works. So there's that, right? There's something to be said there, but shame for me, it's pretty personal, because like I've battled with shame my whole life. It hits a little bit closer to home because both at home culturally and at the church, shame was kind of indirectly or directly at times reinforced. And I was defined by shame. And I guess the saddest part, and I hope some people can connect with this here, shame became so a part of who I was that I didn't feel right if I wasn't feeling shame. That's actually true for you. I went my life feeling if I don't feel ashamed of something, something's wrong. Because shame is usually coming from a place of correction, from a parent, a pastor, or whatever. And for me, I thought if I'm not constantly in shame, then I'm just some arrogant asshole that thinks he's got it all figured out. I should be feeling shame at all times because I have something to improve in. And it's sad. I think back and I think about all the people out there who don't even realize you're living in shame because it feels familiar to you because you've been there for so long. And so let me encourage you guys to maybe take a step back and ask yourself, like, damn, if it doesn't feel good, it might not be you. You know what I'm saying? It might be something else. I remember a time, and we didn't really talk about this, but I remember when you were graduating college and grades were such a big thing. For you, getting a job was a huge ordeal. Of course. And I remember there was this one job that didn't hire you. You didn't get the position that you wanted. And your immediate reaction was, it's because I'm stupid. It's because I suck. I said that? Yeah. You were so integrated with this idea that they didn't hire me because I am this way. I'm not good enough. And so me being the encourager, I'm like, no, Dan, you're gifted, you're talented, God has something else for you. You're like, no, it's because this is why I suck. That's wild. And to see you come a long way, it's like, but that's real though. For a lot of us, we struggle with that. For sure. We take it very personally and say, I'm not dating because, well, I'm ugly. Or I'm not successful because I'm stupid, or whatever. We make it very much
a shameful act of this is who I am, and this is why the things are happening in the way that they have been happening.
And I think that's why shame is so dangerous, because it seeps into every aspect of life.
Oh yeah,
right. Romantically, professionally, within your family, everything, right? And so it's like, it's one thing to battle with and conquer shame, but like, dude, step one is like acknowledging it, right? Like getting aware of the fact of whether or not you're feeling it, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, okay, I like that. I like where we're going with like, this is what shame is versus guilt. Then like, let's kind of talk about within your experience in the church or as an Asian American, like what are some ways that you have experienced shame? Because I don't think I don't know, I'll speak for myself. I don't think any church I went to was up on up in arms saying you need to feel shameful. I don't think anybody was overt about that, but I do think there was omission of certain behaviors that kind of perpetuated the shame culture. Now, there are kind of three big areas of that I think we should tackle, and I think the first one is purity culture. Yeah. So, I mean, what are your thoughts there? Let's start there.
Yeah, I mean that's a big one. So I mean we gotta probably peel that onion a little bit. When we talk about purity culture, it's different from holding yourself or saving yourself before marriage. I think there's two different things. So we could talk about the Christian ethic of sex and marriage, which is different from purity culture. Does that make sense? So I'll explain it this way. I'll explain it this way. So you could save yourself from marriage because you believe it's the Christian ethic. It's what you believe God had intended, and you're going to abide by that. Purity culture is different. Purity culture says, I'm pure, I'm a virgin, I haven't done these things, which means I'm holier, I'm more righteous, I'm closer to God, and inadvertently maybe leaders would say that's why you deserve leadership positions. You're more elevated because you're quote unquote holier or more pure. That's the purity culture that's extremely toxic. And so without knowing it, people will have this righteous band going on that says because I haven't done these things, I'm better than the other. That's the purity culture that's toxic. And
I'm sure everyone out there that's listening, you guys know exactly what we're talking about, right? It's that culture. Sex is bad. Sex before marriage is bad. And anyone that is, it's so funny when you're younger. The minute you find out someone's not a virgin, they are fucking demonized. And then you grow older, and you're like, oh, it's like it's something to be proud of. How many people you slept with, So that just kind of says something on its own. But no, I was one of those people where I was raised cookie cutter. It was not even an option. It's so funny. I remember my first high school real relationship where I was very clear about, but I'm not going to have sex before marriage. I'm going to plant this flag. Definitely didn't follow through. But just because like it was one of those things that I followed just to follow. And then now that I'm here on this side of the fence, I'm like, dude, you might disagree with me. I just think it's unrealistic. In today's day and age in culture, I'm not telling everybody out there to go tell young people to go have sex and fuck everybody. But like, perhaps we change the stigma around it, I guess.
We have to.
Because like, I don't know, man. You find out a lot about yourself and other people through that process, and it's like, I hate the fact that there's shame around sex when it is fucking hardwired into our DNA to want to mate. It's normal to see a hot guy and start lusting. It's normal to see a pretty girl and start lusting. It's
okay. There's a difference between lust and love, so we gotta clarify. But I get what you're saying in the sense of like there is this attraction that we have towards other people, which is fair. That's true. I think the difference is, we have to be able to distinguish, are we going to follow the Christian ethic or create our own ethic? That's the difference.
Christian or create our own.
So basically, you can have a principle that says, this is what I believe the Bible says about sex and marriage, and etc. Right? And follow that. But sometimes the other pendulum swings to saying, well, because I've been hurt and jaded by the church and whatever, I'm going to create my own ethic. I'm going to create my own principle that's not really grounded in anything else other than this is what I want to do. There's a difference. If you Christian ethic, you mess up, you do the thing, whatever, that happens, okay. There's, we go through the line of what it looks like to repent, what it looks like to be restored, etc. But to do your own thing is very different. You're no longer following a Christian ethic, you're following your own ethic. So that's the difference where I like to wrestle with people of like, I get that oftentimes we talk about sex and marriage and purity. There's a lot of negative connotations to it. We're not really told why sex and marriage is such a beautiful thing. It's just this is what you got to aim for,
or why it's a bad thing.
Yeah. So that's where I'm like, these are the things that I like to have a further conversation around.
I like that because I've been on either side.
Yeah.
I grew up in Christian ethic, but similar to things we talked about in previous episodes, it was just a thing I followed for the sake of obedience. I didn't understand it.
Didn't understand it. Big thing.
And to be honest, I reached a point in time where I was like, no, fuck that. I am going to create my own ethic, but at the same time, I'm going to be very honest with myself about, is this giving me the fulfillment I'm looking for? Right? And so it's like, I don't know. I kind of think I had to go through this side to learn, right? Like, and this just goes back to like maybe differing opinions, but like I don't believe in this whole I made the mistake so you don't have to, because it's secondhand knowledge. It's like I just don't think it's, I guess what I'm trying to say is whether it be sexual stuff or any other sin, like just the stakes aren't so high. Like life is, you're supposed to fuck up. You're supposed to figure out who you are. You're supposed, you know what I'm saying? And it's like, it's just, I hate the idea that people out there are feeling so guilty about the fact that they're having such natural reactions to biophysiological chemistry, you know? And it's just, that's what I don't like.
Yeah. Yeah. And part of this journey is going to be, like I said, what am I living for? And how is this adventure, this journey unfolding in a way that helps me see God differently from what I've known of him before. And so that's why I think you're trying to unmask like things that are, I don't want to say they're two different things. So in one end, you're trying to find, is God real? Is God good? Is this faith something that I want to follow? And the other side of it is, do I want to follow my own instincts, my own way of doing things? I want to figure that out too. So it's almost as if you got to pick one or the other in a way that says, this is what I believe to be true, and this is what I'm going to go after. So for a lot of people, that's scary. That's terrifying.
Interesting.
You know, right? Because if you grow up in a Christian culture, it's right way, wrong way.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's very binary.
Yes.
Sin.
Yes.
Hell.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
And so I think part of the journey is realizing, okay, am I really following after this ethic? Am I following after this belief? Or am I just saying F it and doing this?
Right.
This other thing. This thing that I just want to do my own thing.
And for me, I went from here to here, and now I'm trying to find somewhere in the middle.
That's the point that I think a lot of people miss out on.
Right, because, okay, let's be clear. Another thing to clarify real quick is, I mean, I believe God's real.
Yeah.
He's real to me, at least. And what people might not know is me and the production team here, every Sunday, we actually meet every Sunday, and we pull up a sermon up on YouTube on this Jumbotron we got here, and we debrief it, right?
Yeah.
But what's nice about this version of church, it's fucking unfiltered. There's no organization or hierarchy. What'd you think about this? How does this apply? There's no fucking political, diplomatic language. It's just very straight to the chase, and it's also very real. So it's like, that's something that like I'm like, damn, I didn't get any of that in church.
Right.
And because of that, someone might look at what we're doing here and say, well, that's not church. And I'm like, well, why not? Like, why do I have to be bound by the straitjacket of this hierarchical structure? Versus, we're talking about Jesus, we're listening to the gospel, and it's real to the point where we're legitimately applying it to our everyday lives. So it's like, I don't want this version. We did this over here. I didn't find fulfillment here. So I'm trying to find somewhere in the middle.
What a journey.
But it's also at the same time, I think something we can all relate to. I know my boy Ray can, is like this middle version that we're trying to maybe even break new ground on. We haven't found it yet.
Yeah.
There's no version about that out there.
Yeah.
And so even before the pandemic, me and this dude would hop around from church to church every 2 or 3 weeks. Like we're on fucking Tinder for churches, man. We were just fucking looking for reasons. Demographics off.
Tinder for churches.
This guy, I can tell he's anti-capitalist, whatever it might be, right?
Yeah.
And so we were just going through, and there's something to be said about like, listen, like, don't constantly look for Mrs. Right, be Mr. Right, like that shit I get. But at the same time, like I said, it's like we only have the version of church that was set up and executed by prior generations.
Yeah.
And we're going fucking buck wild over here. I think it's appropriate time for like innovation or some sort of adjustment, if you will.
Yeah. That's going to be scary for people.
Yeah.
But I would say there's got to be. You know? There's just got to be. And so I think when we because I don't want to, we could have just more discussions about, the saving yourself before marriage and the Christian ethic around sex. But I think more so that's prevalent is the shame culture in the church and even in our own culture of why has this defined who I am and why can't I break out of this mold?
Right.
Why do I always feel bad about myself in ways that, because you feel so bad about who you are, who you think you are, this is why you keep messing up. This is why you perpetuate the mistakes that you don't want to go back to. It's this identity piece of you don't know where your value lies, you don't know where you belong, you don't know who loves you, and because out of that, then you start acting like the fool that you just, don't want to look in the mirror.
Totally. And okay, this is where, one day we're definitely going to have a female guest brought on, and we'll dive deep into this, because the other aspect of this, which we can't relate to, is purity culture seems to hit women way more.
I agree.
Right? Because
I agree.
A dude's like, you're the man if you're out there having sex.
But
girls, you're a slut.
You're
a slut. You're a whore. Oh my God, slut shaming and all that. And it's just kind of like, I guess the sad reality is that slut shaming that happens in schools, that shit starts at home. That shit starts in the churches. And so it's like, I can't even imagine what that's like, because again, it's so natural to want want to act on these sexual desires, yet to be fucking demonized for it is just, it's wild to me.
Yeah, and that's the tough part. It's we don't allow people to wrestle with their struggle, wrestle with their desires. Like, I know some amazing people who passionately go to church, passionately love God, but they have this desire like, dang, dude, I'm trying to procreate like tonight. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there's like this desire that says, but I can't talk about that. You know what I mean? But I'm like, that's what we do got to talk about, And we don't give space for realness. Yeah. You know what I mean? And so what people end up doing is they do it behind the scenes. Yeah. And then when people find out what they've done behind the scenes, shame kicks in. Damn, I done effed up because I'm an F up. Yeah. And then it's directly tied to your identity, your faith. It affects your family, your friends. Yeah. Shame disrupts everything about you.
Right. Would you go as far to say there shouldn't be any shame, much less in the church or even anyone's life?
Obviously. Period.
But it's not obvious to other people. It's not even me now. I'm just like, oh damn, I have to think about that. But yeah, as we're talking, if you guys feel shame out there, like it's a good idea to check yourself, because I think it's a flag of like some kind of unhealthy doctrine or some kind of ill-perceived like perception that might not be accurate.
Shame is not at all biblical. It's not anything that God has for you. Shame should not be a part of our narrative whatsoever.
Right. Okay, I love that. So that's purity culture. Yeah. I think another big prevalent one is what I'm going to call, what did I call it? I called it either social or square culture. What I mean by this is, and I just think back to when I was growing up, right? Who were the people that were marked as the bad kids? People having sex, or people drinking, going out to parties, having fun. Yeah. Right, and that's another big one. I literally remember my parents saying, "Don't hang out with X, Y, or Z," because they got into some issue at school with drinking or drugs, or they're smoking weed and And it's just like, again, there's this perpetuation of like, this person's a fuck up now, right? Yeah. They smoked weed, it's what they did, but now who they are is a fuck up, and stay away from that. And I'm just like, don't get me wrong, people. I used to be one of the people judging people doing that shit, right? Until I completely went full filter the other way. Yeah. But like, I don't understand it, because again, this is just part of life, man. Life, like, how else are you gonna learn who you are, what you're made of, and what you believe, unless you scrape your fucking knees and get a couple black eyes?
Yeah, and the other thing is you gotta own some of those. You gotta own your journey. You gotta own those mistakes. Yeah. You know, and what shame does is, shame will create your identity. Shame will create a narrative, and the community, if you do it right, the community can shame you in a way that becomes who you are. Right. You know what I mean? And so for most people, when you accept that, it's like, you know what? Whoa. This is what everyone believes about me. F it, that's what I'll be. Right. You accept that.
Wow. So I just want to call what you just said out. I think it's pretty profound. You could end up creating your identity through shame. For sure. Shame could be a main ingredient in how you perceive yourself and who you are. 100%. I think that's so relevant, and I think that applies to a lot of people. Yeah. And it takes some fucking unlearning to do, right, to take that out. Yeah. But yeah, no, I remember just, and it's kind of crazy too, because on the note of like social partying and all that kind of stuff. People that grow up sheltered, people that I knew that I went to school with, you guys might know some people that was as straight as a ruler all throughout high school. Then they go to college and shit, dude, they go buck wild, they spiral out of control.
Right.
I'm actually glad I experienced that social scene in high school, because when I went to college, it was different, but not so different. Whereas like people get on like academic probation, tossed out of school, that type of shit, you know?
Yeah.
So I'm not encouraging underage drinking, but like honestly, I don't like it happens.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I can't say much. I've been part of that too, but I think in that is, like I said, it's if you do things just to do it, you'll never understand who you are nor the ethic behind it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And that's what you've been falling into.
Yes.
I'm 100% in that.
100%.
Don't do this. Why? Just don't do it.
Right.
And so we never really fully grasped nor understood why these things mattered.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's why our perception of God is a critical judge. He's this overbearing, overprotective father.
Yeah.
No one wants that.
Yeah.
Right? There's no freedom in understanding who you are, what you were made for. It's just don't F up. Because if you F up, that's who you are. You know what I mean?
Yes. No, 100%. That was me. I judge people for smoking weed just for the sake of it.
Yeah.
Then I smoked weed. Oh, it's not a big deal. All right. And then I found out years and years and years later, weed's not great for me. Right? Personally, for me, I don't see it. There's more negatives than positives, right? Same thing with sex. I was just judging people for sleeping around, and then I hook up with people to say, fuck it, I'm gonna figure this out for myself. Turned out for me personally, didn't make me feel great. Just a person I don't know hooking up. It's awkward. It's great in the moment, I guess, or in talks. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, and it was just a personal destination for me to come to say, okay, I've done that, and now I know it's not going to bring me happiness what I thought I would. Now I can move on. Versus let's just shame people and perpetuate something for the sake of it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So okay.
There's going to be some tension because the other thing that I realized as people listen to this is there's pastors and leaders that I realized listen to this, and I know because I have this inclination too. When people say what you say, their immediate reaction is, "I got to stop you."
Right.
Let me tell you why you shouldn't do that. I think for me and how I love on and serve others is I can tell you that. Yeah. But at the end of the day, you're going to make your decision. My job is to help you see the heart behind the matter, where we're really going, and how we could fulfill fully who we are in Christ. That's the hope, right? To live out fully our identities as who we think we are.
Well, actually, can I pause real quick? Yeah. Because that's a great segue. We're going to do something new for this episode, guys. We are going to add a new segment to the podcast here. We're kind of halfway through. We're going to take a break. Give folks a little time to re-energize or whatever, and we're gonna actually see what we can do with that time in between. So we're gonna go on a quick break. We're gonna come back on that topic because I want to dive into that. So stay tuned. All right, welcome back everybody to this new segment. We're gonna switch it up, see how it goes. We actually don't even know what we're gonna call this segment, but wanted to take a quick little break and share a couple stories and a couple thoughts, right? So I think I'll go first, and I think I just have a random story I want to share today, and then for you, either a story or something on your heart that you think might be a little nugget for folks.
Sure.
All right, so my quick story is this. Everybody's mom in this world has like this weird connection to their children in that when you're doing something wrong is when they're hitting you up.
Oh, they know.
They know, right? And it's fucking weird.
The antennas perk up.
I was in fucking high school. I remember we'd be doing the most crazy shit just to smoke a blunt. And literally as we're sparking up, my mom gives me a call Jioma, where are you? Right? I have to come up with some bullshit lie. But it's so consistent, right? Yeah. So I'm in high school. My mom, again, the legend of Mama Choi, she goes on a mission trip to Mongolia. First mission trip ever, and this is fucking winning the lottery for her, right? She's like, I get to serve God in a foreign country, hell yeah! She goes, leaves the house empty. I somehow get my sister to get out of the house for the weekend, right? I don't even know what I said, but I got her to sleep over at a friend's house, whatever. And so on my side, with my homies, we just threw a huge fucking party. This is right when MySpace came out. We had a code word for the event, Poker Night. Poker Night's gonna be lit. We didn't even have a reliable source of alcohol at the time, but for whatever reason, my crew was very into Tech 9 at the time. Okay. Right? So Tech and Nina, 151 rum. That was, for whatever reason, that was like, you know what, we're going to do it fucking big on poker night. We're going to get 151 rum. Fuck all that other lame shit vodka. We're going to go hard in the paint. And so I ended up throwing this crazy party. It was fucking awesome. I mean, it was awesome and horrible, right? For obvious reasons, where we were just puking our guts out. But weeks later, my mom comes back. And she randomly, like, we're eating dinner and goes, you know, Daniel, I didn't tell you this yet, but like when I was in Mongolia, while I was there, I had the craziest dream about you. I'm not, oh, crazy, what's going on? She's like, yeah, so we had recently gotten these new white, like, pleather couches. And she was saying, you know, in my dream, I saw you with this random Peggy Nyoja, right? White girl, with brown hair, and I couldn't see her face, but you were laying with her on the couch over there and like kind of making out and kissing her. I almost shit my pants there right now. I was like,
Mama knew.
How can she know, right? It's crazy. So I'm fucking sweating bullets, and I like, you know, I like somehow get her to move on from, are you crazy, Mom? That never happened, this and that. But I was just like, it was just another one of those moments where I was like, damn, my mom is a Jesus hippie, but like maybe she's a little closer to God than other people. You know, it's just
either Jesus speaks or she got cameras.
It's
one or the other.
It's crazy. So, anyways, and those things happened several times, but that was like one of the holy shit moments for me. So that's my little story.
That's hilarious.
What about you?
You know, I think I don't have a funny story, but I think what's been on my heart recently is as I get to walk with and love on different people going through different churches and whatnot. A big story or a big gospel that's being preached more so now than ever before is this idea that if you give to the church, you're gonna get something out of it.
Wait. This feels like, are we debunking something right now?
Well, I think we need to debunk something. Right
Okay.
It's this idea that if I give to Jesus, Jesus is gonna hook me up with something, right? As that offering basket gets closer to you, there's this message that says, the more you give, the more you get. Right?
Yes,
and so
I've definitely heard that.
When that becomes the message, and all of a sudden, next thing you know, because you want to get something in return, you're going to give a little more. The problem with that is the Bible doesn't say anything about that. When you give to Jesus, you're getting Jesus. Like that's the whole whole point of this, right?
Right.
And so not only are people disillusioned by what they've given, it's almost people being saturated in this false gospel that says everything is going to be okay all the time. And I'm like, no, that's not how faith journey works. You know,
this kind of sounds like the more you give, the more you get. Kind of feels like karma, the concept of karma, wrapped in Christian tissue paper.
It's bad.
All right,
it's bad.
I like
Don't believe that. Don't own that.
Let us know what you guys think. I like this idea of like debunking shit that like everyone has heard at one point in the church. So we'll see where it goes. But thanks for joining us. Back to the show. Alright, and we back. So right before we took the break, we were talking about how, you know, there's this one kind of plastic version of church that you just obey to obey, and then I'm over here trying to figure shit out, and now I'm trying to correct somewhere in the middle. And you were saying how, you know, some church leaders, pastors are probably listening to this, and as they hear me talk about this shit, their instinct, I'm sure, is I need to stop this from happening. I need to get in front in the name of protection and that kind of stuff. So
I don't want to diminish the concept of sin. Sin is real.
Sure.
Sin is a real thing. Jesus died on the cross so that we can have life with Him, away from sin. But I think at the same time, I am not afraid of the journey that God has us on. In other words, I'm not saying that you should go out, F up, do this, do that because you want to live for yourself. But I think when you start to navigate and journey through the whys, who is God? Why does this matter to Him? And what does this produce? Then you have authentic faith. Then you have this genuine, real faith that says, this is who I'm following.
Right.
This is what I'm living for. And I am going to live and follow by that. That's very different than just seeing a bunch of rules and saying, okay, to be a good person, this is what I have to do. It's very different. And I realized a lot of churchgoers, especially early on, have fell into this narrative, this trap of I'm just going to do this. That means I'm a good Christian or I'm a good follower. But there's no authenticity. There's no realness to their faith as to why. What does it do? How do we wrestle through these real issues? It's just told, follow.
And then on the other end, when they go to this spectrum, pastors will use this in the name of protection or whatever, but really that's where I think shame comes in too. It might not be overt, but it's kind of like a last ditch effort to prevent from, if you will. And so I don't know, man. Right now, I might change. I'm not married to anything. Right now, I'm very in the position of like, dude, you got to make your own mistakes to learn. And it's like, I'll give you an example. In my job, if I had a micromanager that was always over my shoulder, preventing me from making any mistake, I can't learn that way, right?
Sure.
When you're driving home from whatever event and you got work the next day, if your parent is in the car or constantly telling you better fill up your gas tank before you go in, otherwise whatever, right? And you're micromanaged into that behavior, you won't learn anything until you decide to not fill your gas tank up, wake up for work the next day, be fucking late, go through that shit, and then okay, that's why I need to go. You know what I'm saying? It's like you need to make mistakes to learn. I just think is how life ought to be. Another topic I want to bring up, a little bit of a curveball, is I totally respect the heart and intention of that. I want to protect. I just think that's an antiquated and ineffective way to lead. I think about parenting that way. My parents were very much the same way. They didn't, whether they knew, understood, or didn't, it was just in the name of protection, I'm going to do this. Let's peel back that onion. Whether you're a parent, whether you're a pastor, whether you're a business leader, if you are leading out of fear, which is what that is, I don't think that's the right way to go.
Right.
It's good intention. I think your heart is in a good place, but it's operating from a negative fuel source, which is fear, and I don't think you can bear good fruit in that way.
Because I think in that you'll become a lot more controlling. You'll be a lot more frantic and anxious because you're worried about where they at, what are they doing, But in that your grip gets really tight. That overbearing, overprotective parent, whatever, is the grips get tight. And so when you become overly confined, when you're free from that grip, that's why people just bust out. That's why you hear stories about like PKs and, people who grew up in a very, either conservative or controlled environment. When they escape to go to college, they go crazy. Right? And so I love to overly communicate. I love to be able to articulate a gospel that says it's about presence. It's about the journey. It's about owning mistakes, right? Like, because you ain't perfect, so you're going to own the mistakes, learn from the mistakes. Not to say that you should always gravitate towards that, but I think people fall. You mess up. You do things that you're not proud of, etc. But if you're left alone in that, that's where shame really kicks in. I deserve to be alone. I deserve this punishment. You know what I mean? But I'm like, damn, if that's for everybody on all platforms, we're all effed. I like that. So I think on the topic of shame then, I don't know, what do you think, what are the right steps to conquer and overcome? Because we talked about like, step one is absolutely acknowledge, right? Get self-aware, really take a step back and ask yourself like, how do I think about myself? How do I talk to myself? Man, that's tough. Because shame is so tied into your value, your worth, you think, like for example, if I were to come up to you and say, Daniel, you shouldn't do this, right? You smoke too much weed, or you're drinking too much, whatever. Blah, blah, blah. Sometimes people hear this, they hear this interaction and think, I don't deserve to be loved. So you change. Just so that you can gain attention, you can gain love, you can gain acceptance, there's a shift in your behavior, right? Then you're just doing things out of, this. You're doing things out of what I tell you to do. Rather than trying to find a genuine belief and understanding of how do I accept and love who I am because I bear the image of God. Right? As God so loves me, how do I receive and accept that? And so sometimes it takes a lot of deconstructing of, I need to be able to hear feedback and accountability without making it so that I'm unlovable. I don't deserve this. You know what I mean? You got to be able to learn to separate that and be able to accept some of the mistakes, accept some of the critique without making it sound like I'm a worthless piece of whatever. You know what I mean?
Okay. I think that goes back to the whole fuel thing I talked about. Fear is a bad fuel. And shame. Like, okay, we are team anti-shame here. That's the kind of point of the message. But like, shame sometimes works.
It
right?
could, yeah, for sure.
And I think shame is not a terrible initial fuel source, but you can't be running on that forever. For example, at the end of last year, I went through a little bit of a depressive state, and I stopped working out. I stopped caring about anything. I mean, I feel like Ray remembers this, and your boy gained some fucking weight, dude. And no one was like fat shaming me or anything, but like I just remember seeing a photo of myself and just looking dusty, just looking crusty.
Yeah.
And I shamed myself and being like, you're fucking better than this. And goddamn right I was, right? That got my ass in the gym, and it got me to a place where like I'm way more fit and healthy now. Now, my point is, it was great tinder to start the flame, but to continuously operate on that fuel source, which I fight with every day, is bad, because what happens is I'm struggling with like body dysmorphia now.
Right.
No matter how big I get or whatever, I still look like a piece of shit to me.
Yeah.
So it's like, I think it's a matter of understanding, being discerning of like when it becomes destructive.
Yeah.
That kind of
thing.
right?
Because you're going to battle through, is this who I want to be? And is this who I am?
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
And so you can like, for example, you can gain a lot of weight and be able to say, look, this is not who I want to be. This is not who I am, because this is not who I am.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the push that we want to get to.
Yeah.
Right? Being able to say, look, these things are happening to me, but you know what? I don't have to accept these things. This does not define me.
Right.
And so that's why I for me, not just because I'm a pastor, but because I believe in the Word of God. I believe who God says that I am, and I hold true to that no matter what people say about me. Because people are critical. I'm very critical of myself. So before I hear the voices from the externals or even internal, I'm thinking I need to be able to have a solid foundation of who I am. Otherwise, I'm going to sway back and forth.
Right.
You know? And so I am learning more and more how not to allow certain voices to define who I am.
I love
my
that.
mistakes to define who I am.
Yes.
Right?
The two voices I can define who you are, yourself and God.
Yep.
Right? And I think shame is sneaky dangerous too, because for me, when I was in the thick of my shameful highlight or heyday, if you will, it's like I projected that shame onto other people.
Oh, 100%.
Under the banner of righteousness and holiness, right? So like another quick story. None of my stories are quick. Deal with it. I remember I was in college. I had some internship. I finally landed my first internship. It was my first paycheck at a corporation, and it was cool, right? So every day I go to work, and I had a routine. I went to work, I went to the gym, and then I went to my best friend's house, and we got high every single night, right? He lived on the other side of town. It took like, I don't know, 25, 30 minutes to drive home from there. And it was literally like clockwork. Every day we did that, right? And it was great, and I was having a ton of fun. We were watching Entourage and whatever. And every single night on that drive home for 25 to 30 minutes, just in my dark-ass car, my beat-up, busted-up 1991 Toyota Camry, I was in a dark place of like, I would literally talk to myself and say, you are a piece of shit son, getting high, earning money, wasting it on weed when your mom grew up under what conditions? Your mom's a single parent and you're a piece of shit doing what?
Right.
And it was this weird like masochistic thing where it was like, I felt like that was the right thing to feel, right? And so
punishing yourself.
Punishing myself. And so fast forward, that same homie, I remember if Watch the Throne tour came out, right? Pete Kanye with Jay-Z. And
no idea.
Wait, really?
No.
Ray, wait, really? You don't know Watch the Throne? Oh, damn. I know. It's cool. Hey, we still love him, though. All right, anyways, it was a joint album that Jay-Z did with Kanye. They were going on tour, and two of my really good friends were going, right? It was like $250 to go. They were trying to get a group to go together. And we were all hanging out, kicking it. They were making their case. We got to make this whole trip together. Let's go. Everyone's getting excited. My fucking self-righteous, shameful ass goes, how dare you guys? Has your mom ever been to a concert? Ever? Because I know mine hasn't. So who are we to fucking spend this much money to go watch some people perform? And it was so fucking toxic because I thought I was doing the right thing by being a shit to myself. I thought I was doing the right thing by perpetuating my shit to other people. And it was just destructive. Over and over again. And so like I've had to really become super self-aware about how I'm talking to myself. And what assumptions am I making? What values am I projecting onto myself?
Right.
And it takes energy and it takes effort. It's not just something that'll happen. It's like you need to choose from the moment that you wake up. I'm going to be conscious of my thoughts, and I am going to consciously decide who I am and how I feel versus kind of be a victim to it. And then tumble into shame.
The more you are critical of yourself, the more critical you are of others.
Right.
That's just how it works.
Right. Mm-hmm. And that's actually when I started to feel different, Sam. That's crazy you said that. When I made the realization, you're being so fucking mean to yourself. Why do you think you're judging people? Because you're judging yourself, dude. Mm-hmm. And the moment I was able to love, accept, and just not judge myself, peace.
Yeah.
It was weird, man. I felt lighter. People would do shit in front of me that I would previously have freaked out about and been like, you know what? Who am I to judge?
Yeah.
If they're happy and they're telling me they're happy, dude, fucking awesome, man. Go do that, right? And it might be some crazy shit. And it's just, but at the end of the day, it's like, dude, I don't want to partake in giving shame. Because it just doesn't have any place in my life.
Sure.
Or I'm fighting it, obviously. It's not a done battle.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, guys, I just think, to wrap this up, like shame, I don't think you ever fully rid yourself from it. I think it's a part of the human experiment. You battle it, right? But I think the first step, again, is like get super aware about it. Get super conscious about how you're treating and speaking to yourself.
Yeah.
And then I guess, do you have any kind of tips in your journey or your pastoral or personal journey about just conquering shame?
Yeah. In a very practical sense, you got to be mindful of who you're listening to. What you're listening
I like
to.
that. What messages you're putting in.
So like for me, like I have a journal. One side of what voices I'm listening to, and it's usually negative. My voice, other people's voice. Like what do I feel like I'm hearing?
And that can span from social media walls,
all of that,
commercials,
all of that.
Okay, got you.
I'm not funny enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not da-da-da-da. And these are things that you actually believe about yourself, which is an insecurity. You have that listed out on one side. On the right side, I start to write down who I believe God has me to be. This is what I believe about myself. This is who I'm going to declare over myself. So that's why I write down on the left side all the insecurities, fears, shame-driven identity that I thought I believed about myself. And then on the right side, I write down things that I know this is who I am. This is what I'm built for. So I write down that I am confident, I am a communicator, I am a pastor, I am a lover, I am an encourager. And I write these things down because it's powerful when you can write it and you can see it. Yeah. So you're basically just declaring that over yourself, over your life, the truths of God over you, and nothing and nobody can take that away.
Wait, I might start doing that because you're right. There's power in writing something down.
For sure.
And once you key in on the same messages and stories you're telling yourself, when you write it down, it won't go by unnoticed then. You know what I'm saying? Because you're conscious of it, you're on the lookout.
And you live by that.
And as soon as it comes up, oh, wait a minute, no. That's how I used to perceive myself. Yeah. This is new Daniel now, right? This is who I'm taking ownership of my life and I'm going this way.
Right.
But that does take a lot of energy and focus.
It does. It takes absolute intentionality.
Right.
And that's something that I'm learning and being encouraged by is as identity is discovered, as I'm learning more and more of who I am, I'm writing that ish down. And it's not a false identity. It's not like this is what I wanted. I'm creating something that's not true or not me. I'm writing down that I know is me.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean?
Which I think is a journey though, right? Because you're not going to wake up one day and God just downloads who you are. I think identity is kind of a combination of discovering versus creating for yourself. But I freaking love that, dude. That's why I meditate, honestly. I meditate every morning for people that don't know, and people kind of think woo-woo when they hear the word meditating. I think my version of meditation is kind of close to prayer, actually. I'm just kind of in my thoughts. Question for you guys. How often are you actually unplugged from the world, sitting in silence by yourself in a room, combing through your thoughts, through your perceptions, through all of that?
Big deal.
And if you're not, it might be worth asking yourself why. Because it is uncomfortable. It is hard. But to your point, we have so many points of input. You need that.
You need to unplug.
Right?
Yep. So I'm trying to tell Ray to do. Just unplug, Sabbath, rest, which I can't wait to talk about.
That boy's a hustler. He'd be working too hard for his own damn good. But, all right. No, I think I like that. I like where we ended here. Because talked about shame, how it applies to the church, to our ethnic culture, and what we can kind of do about it. If you guys out there have any additional ideas, stories you want to share, or your own thoughts on shame, send it over to us again. We're reading everything. We're chatting and debriefing everything that we get. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll be back.
Peace.